Repetition builds trust. We've seen it in dozens of market research studies with third-party partners, with the creative we serve out there.
Hi, I'm Al Ludwig, host of the Law Firm Brand Builders podcast and CEO of Practice Made Perfect, where we've managed more than $500 million in marketing for law firms across the country. Happy to be here and provide value however we can. Now back to the episode.
Today, I have our VP of Web Services, Mark Riley, on the call. And Mark is the guy that I talk to whenever I think I know what I'm talking about, but I want someone to bring me down a peg or two when it comes to SEO. So Mark, thanks for joining.
Oh, well, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much.
So you've been talking to me a lot about search intelligence, and that's not a phrase that's probably referenced a lot outside of PMP. And so tell me a little bit, what is search intelligence?
Yeah, I love it. Search intelligence is understanding that today people discover, evaluate, and trust businesses on more platforms than just from Google search. And so from our perspective, it's assembling a cohesive strategy that works across all those platforms in a cohesive way.
And how much of that would you say is, your standard, like when it comes to SEO, right? As people typically understand it, would you say that that's part of it?
Oh, absolutely. I think, we've had conversations about this before, where it's the website is to represent the depth of knowledge of your business and that you're capable of doing and providing a high level of service that people are looking to ideally hire you for. And so then it grows from that perspective and then begins getting validated in the real world from Google reviews. And that brings in the whole ecosystem of local SEO and Google Business and that platform. And then that canons into some of the paid offerings, local services ads, which are all intertwined with the reviews that are coming in from Google Business. So yeah, it's kind of concentric circles, and the content core of it still remains. But keeping in mind, content can be different things. It doesn't always just have to be written content as well. You think of video content, and then from, I think of from an AI perspective of how it is watching and reading video content, and part of that is in structured data and in transcription. So when you think about embedding that in a website, then that also is included in optimizing your website. So yeah, definitely still a part of that larger ecosystem.
Yeah. And I like, what we're doing with some of our clients. I'm thinking of one in particular. They have weekly podcasts, and they sit down, they talk shop for 30 to 60 minutes on the topics that are important to them. And we consult with them on some of those topics as well. And then we take that podcast and we distribute it across all platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and the whole RSS feeds, as well as cut everything down and post them across all their socials and YouTube Shorts, which obviously Google loves pulling from its own properties. So it's very important for us to have it there as well.
Well, think of like mentions, Al, as well, and social listening and all those other components that go into that, so it's sort of expanding the footprint where kind of the website is still the castle, but it's just expanding the moat and and using these different platforms to increase the awareness of your brand. And then at each time that someone's sharing it, or, it's a cumulative effect as well. I think of YouTube Shorts and how much more the engagement is on those and the view-through rates on those compared to just the longer form videos. But you do 10, some might hit, most of them will get a few, but either way, it's more views and awareness of your brand. So I really strongly believe, it's a worthwhile expense of time to be doing the video piece of it. 100%.
Yeah. And I think people get annoyed with me because I constantly, I don't talk about any one specific channel or one specific product or service, even as it relates to PMP and all the ones that we provide. I'm always talking about the strategy across the entire marketing ecosystem, because ultimately when it comes to SEO and AEO, AIO, GEO, all the acronyms, right? There's the best practices, and all of us that have been in the space long enough, we know what to do, right? Whether it's us, whether it's another agency that's been doing it for a long time, seeing a lot of success, we know the basics, we know the blocking and tackling, we know we need to make great hub and spoke content on the websites, particularly for the local areas that the law firm service, whether they're a PI law firm, a criminal defense law firm, or any other type of law firm.
Bankruptcy, family law.
And having that hub and spoke content, which are money pages and the spokes to support that, is basic you need it, right? And the interlinking and site structure, the technical aspects of the site, all very important. And anybody who's been in the space long enough, we know it's in our checklist. And then implementing new things that we're seeing in the market, like the digestible content up front, right? Answering the question up front and then going deeper into it. I know you've worked on all of our sites to retool some of the content so that it's doing those best practices for the LLMs, right?
It's more findable and readable. Think of, answer boxes, entity boxes, all those different things. It all it's, the game of SEO, it's pivoted, but it's still just doing lots of little things, lots really well.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of it's like death by a thousand cuts, where you're just basically just doing every little detail with a magnifying glass and then making it more discoverable for LLMs.
Yeah. And then offsite, going to the premium listings, your Justias, your Avos, your lawyers.com, your super lawyers, making sure that's all taken care of to the best of its ability for your law firm, the attorneys at your law firm, and then, continue to go down from there from your various other citations and your link building and so on and so forth. Right. So I don't think it's it's not if you've been in it long enough, just like if you've been a lawyer long enough, right, it stops being really a complicated game. It's just second nature, it, and you're keeping up to date with the new things that are coming out, the new ways in which they're going to help create efficiency and results for your business, and you're adjusting that and applying it to your clients, right?
I think of new technology wise, just real quickly, I think of the conversation we had yesterday about video delivery. And do we go on YouTube and use their compression and things like that? Or there's other platforms that are available now where they're optimizing for the bandwidth of the user and automatically delivering the video at the scale that it can actually, the browser or the device can actually handle. So yeah, I align with you 100%. It's a matter of there's that sort of core fundamental knowledge. And then there's just it's almost like a CLE, where we're sort of just continually learning and there's always new things and we just need to be abreast of.
Well, and I love that you brought that up because that speaks a good bit to the personalization, right, of everything. And it's just moving more and more and more in that direction down to the way it's serving the video on the user's browser, on their device based off of their bandwidth and all that, right? That you don't think about that as personalization, but it is. It's personalized based off of the capabilities of how you're accessing the information so that it works better for you, so that it retains you on the website and in the video, whether that's on a third-party platform or on your website. But same thing with LLMs, right? There's no agency out there that can truly say like, oh yeah, we got search for AI figured out, right? Because it's so different and it's so based on these long, extensive queries, and it's known that it's
Think of the user journey, like just when you look at some of the converting terms through, an AI Max campaign or something, and it's like, man, is that really relevant? But the intent at some point in that user's journey, they were looking for exactly what we're hoping to help them with. So,
and a lot of it boils down to just best marketing practices, right? Let's get out of AI and SEO and websites and think about best marketing practices. And this was what I did when I was in house for a long time. It was, how can I get people to talk about my brand as often as possible, as positively as possible? And now that the law firm is reaping the fruits of that right now, because they had more brand mentions everywhere than anybody else, whether it was a linked mention or not. There was just more brand mentions across the state than any other personal injury law firm. And now that's a big factor when it comes to the LLMs. But we didn't do that for the LLMs. We did that because I'm a personal injury law firm. My services are pretty broad. I can serve anybody who's been injured in a car wreck. So that's pretty much anybody, right? And so how do I stay top of mind as often as possible? How do I take up as much real estate whenever they are searching for a solution? And by the way, a lot of them aren't searching for a solution. A lot of them already have their solution chosen before they ever make it there. But
that's all search intelligence, Al. It's all those different platforms where
so that's why we're talking about search intelligence. And I loop it together, search and social intelligence a lot. And we've been talking about that a lot internally because, well, what's another way your brand can benefit from mentions and being pulled into the LLMs, into your regular search? Well, if you're creating content at scale, especially if that's video content and social media style content, well, now you have, if you're distributing it every day, you have a piece of video content about what you do being distributed across 7 platforms every single day with the ability to be pulled into these search results. Also, any given piece of content, even if it's a low performing piece of content, it's likely going to get you across those platforms thousands of views, thousands of touch
Yeah.
points for your brand that, just the written content on your website is not going to get, because that has to be found, right? And it's also helping drive some of that written content. So one of the firms that we're working with doing that podcast, well, our team is then taking that, obviously doing the best practices with having the transcript available and everything, but then finessing it into a long form written piece of content that cannot be replicated by anybody else, that is highly relevant to the topic, and it can't be replicated by anybody else because it's directly from the mouths on the podcast
It's
and
a
the people
subject
and their
matter expert.
experience.
Yeah, it's a subject matter expert that just talking about what they do every day in a professionalized way. And yeah, again, it sort of ties back into that. It's just doing lots of little things. And some of those little things are going to be publishing video on multiple platforms. And obviously all of, the descriptions and all those things are all optimized and all those good things that are best practices. But, it's interesting in just how much content can be created and leveraged for ultimately just being when, there's the saying where you and I are familiar with, which is, we can't make the accident happen, but we can be memorable when
Mhm.
it does happen. And that is accomplished by brand reinforcement, which we aligned on almost immediately. So
My favorite firms to work with are the ones that want to be super aggressive, understand that every incremental gain costs a little bit more once they reach a certain point. Now, these
yeah,
are the firms that are generating thousands of MBA cases per year, and they're already top of mind through broadcast TV and through billboards and through their social media presence. And then when someone searches on a high intent phrase for the firm, they're being served that firm in the LSA because, oh yeah, by the way, that firm's doing good SEO, they're doing good customer service, so they have a lot of
good reviews coming in that,
a lot of good reviews, a lot of
yeah.
local intent. Oh, they're also smart enough to make sure that they have a local office in a high density area in the area that they're serving, right? So you're
Yeah.
showing up on LSAs, and then they're showing up in the Google ads right below the LSAs, and then they're showing up in the map pack organically, which is, for me, that's the money spot to be when it comes to SEO. Most of my efforts historically have been in local SEO, trying to get the high intent geo-specific phrases and landing in that map pack organically. But hey, by the way, we're also being very aggressive on Google ads. And so we're also popping up as a sponsor result within the map pack. And then you go further down, right? And we
And you're
built
at the
this,
blue links and
we
then,
built
and
this
what,
search intelligence system that now we're also in the blue links. And next thing you know,
Repetition builds
that
trust.
user who,
Whether
maybe he's even trying to
we like
avoid
it or
your
not,
brand, right? Because
whether
they
we
see
like
you on the billboards, they
how
see
the
you on
firm
TV.
presents themselves or not.
The more repetitive you are in a market, the more trust you build in the market. And as we've seen it in dozens of market research studies with third-party partners, with the creative we serve out there. And so when that person starts doing their search and all of a sudden they see my law firm and it has 1,000 reviews and a 4.9 rating, they see us in the LSA and Google ads in the map pack, in the blue links, and out of the 10 things that they saw on that page, we were 5 of them. Repetition builds trust. This firm is showing up everywhere for everything I search for on this topic. They must really specialize in it. And this is all happening
yeah.
subconsciously,
And you
right?
think about that.
You're not piecing this together
Yeah.
individually in your head as you're going through the journey.
Think of the layers as well. If they're in the community and they're doing some sponsorship efforts, and there's a
Mhm.
commitment to it that comes in as well.
Yeah.
And it just ties back to what you mentioned earlier. Which is it's just being a good business, doing good business things, and the reviews. That's why reviews are so important, because it validates from the real world in a digital manner that that's true.
Yeah.
And it's it's yeah. So
And
it's
that's the search intelligence aspect of it is what I'm highly on board with, right?
yeah.
Because baked within that are the best practices that get you 85, 90% of the way for SEO. in this AI world, right? If you're doing those things, you have 90% of it done, right? And now you got to continuously stay on top of it, but you're pretty much there, and you're taking those inputs and changes and making sure you're implementing those in there, just like 10 years ago for SEO, when we noticed something created improvements or that we had to optimize a little bit differently towards than we did the previous year, we just
Yeah.
implement it in those
Well, that's why it's a
systems and
system.
structures.
Now, Al, like we've talked about, like it's a system. It isn't just piecemeal. We're going to do some YouTube and we're going to do a little bit of link building. It's a more synchronized, deliberate approach
Mm-hmm.
that brings in all of the different platforms. And so when someone is ready to make a decision, you've just got lots of it makes it easier for
Mm-hmm.
someone to make a decision and do and act on that decision. And ultimately from, think of all the user testing experiments we've done and all those different things, it ultimately comes down to friction points. And by being visible and available on all of these different platforms, it's just one less click that they have to do to get in contact with
Mm-hmm.
firms. So it's very interesting for me to see even more integration of the organic real world and the digital space continuing to merge. It reminds me of when, sort of TV started doing streaming and they weren't sure what was going to happen with that, how that was going to play out. And it's just an interesting evolution. And again, like I think of people are just searching different these days. Like, before we had, AI overviews and ChatGPT, you had to choose which one was you think is the best one. Now that was great that you had options and they were curated, but now AI is just telling you this is who you need to talk to, and there's options to contact them through that overview
And
or
and
that
and
input.
what and what
Yeah,
is it and what is it telling you in those AI overviews more often than not? Where is it pulling that from?
all the things that we just talked about.
And a lot of the local SEO
All
inputs
those
from
components,
Google, right?
but
Because
it's pulling from dimensions, it's pulling from
It's still a
reviews, it's
Google product, and more often than not, it's pulling from the guys who are winning at local SEO are typically winning in the AI overviews.
yeah,
Not always, right? But typically, and it's a game of odds, right? And if I'm doing all the right things often enough, the odds are going to be in my favor in the long run. Now, it gets tricky because I mentioned my favorite law firm to work with is the one that wants to be super aggressive, the one that looks at Google Ads as a place to put a lot of dollars in at a lower ROI, right? Where it's their global brand might be bringing in an ROI of their marketing spend of 4 or 5x, and Google Ads might be bringing in 1.5x, right? But they also looking at it as a place to play defense, to make sure
yeah,
that this customer is going to be more expensive for me, and I recognize that, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to pay more of a premium so that I'm getting them more often. Now, that works for the law firms that over the years focused on volume, right? Getting that volume up, because once you get that volume up, you have more resources, you have more ways to do that. You can have a lower ROI per case because you have more cases, right?
yeah.
I'd rather have 2,500 cases at a $5,000 cost per case than 800 cases at a $3,000 cost per
Well,
case.
it's like that bell curve. You know what I mean? Like everyone indexes on the apex of the bell curve. And this is where my maximum ROI is, but it's still on the other side of that bell curve. It's still profitable. Now, it might not be 10x or whatever the number is, but you're still very profitable. And then it comes into just volume. So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And the execution of it, when we're talking about for someone maybe who doesn't have those resources, like, yeah, but where do I start, Alex? Right?
Sure.
How do I get found? It's like, okay, well, first it depends on where in the journey you are, how much resources you have, and I think some people, they don't realize how much resources they have if they're running a business in a manner that allows them to spend their marketing, right? If they're a $3 million firm, which I know a lot of firms that or 3 million, and it didn't take them too long to get there. If you're doing 25% of your gross fees in marketing, and that's $750,000 in a
Yeah.
small to mid-sized market, that can go a long way,
It's
and
meaningful. Yeah.
that can build your brand while also being direct response. And so when we talk about kind of where to go with it, it's always so difficult for me to kind of talk about it globally. Like, oh, well, let me start here. Let me layer that, because I have to know about your market. I have to know about how you operate internally. Like, are you turning away cases that are mid-tier cases because you only want the top cases? Well, I got a plan for that. And, ultimately, like, we're working with one law firm that they do have a small budget. And they came to us because they were already doing SEO, and they were already doing social ads and a minor social organic presence. And just from like, this isn't working, but we still have faith in that product. And they came to us and asked how we would revamp it. I did a live audit with them to kind of show them, what goes through my mind in real time as we're auditing this. So that it helps to show, like, you're not BSing, right? You're kind of rambling in the moment. and
Oh, I remember when we first met, you mentioned something about referrals as well.
Mhm.
And what you mentioned was really, I thought was very interesting in that, a lot of clients, oh, we don't want that case. We're going to just refer it out. But like, there's so much extra value in taking that case, even though
Yep.
the return may not be as significant as something else, but there's that other value to it.
A lot of personal injury law firms, especially those that primarily focus in the MVA space, that get to that $5 to $15 million revenue place, which is a fantastic place to be,
Yeah.
right? You're making good money. You've got a strong team. You have a real operation. But what I find with a lot of them is they start hitting up that plateau and getting stuck in this little purgatory because they built it off of, we take the cases that are going to be worth more on average, right? We're not taking the minimum policy limits. We're not taking the cases that might be a little bit harder to work up.
Yeah.
Or they might take them and refer them off to someone else. And at that point, there's someone else's client, and they're never going to hire you for that service. More often than not, what I find in the law firms that are in that space is exactly that, right? They could be taking, just to make up numbers, they could be taking 500 cases, but they're choosing to take 200 cases.
Yeah.
So now there's a 300 case gap that would have been referrals sending people to you in the future. And those referrals are better vetted, typically worth more. And you can talk to any law firm out there. It's like, is the average case fee on your past client referrals more than your average case? 9 times out of 10, yes. Do you take them at a higher rate because they're more relevant? 9 times out of 10, yes. Right. So it's everything works together so that the marketing dollars that you spent last year are at work for you this year and the next year, because the lifetime value of the client from 2 years ago is now 25% higher because they sent someone to you, and you're getting the case fee for that person too.
And think of all the Google reviews you're missing out on as well.
Yeah.
From all those.
It's hard to get, and what Google's doing, right? Google's making it harder and harder to get a large number of reviews if you don't have a large number of clients, right? They are finding ways to pick reviews off that, whether they all came from the same IP, they're all mentioning the same employee. There was a blast of them over the course of a few days,
like
and then a wane
blip,
off.
right.
We're seeing it. Like, we're seeing there was the system that I helped put in place at the law firm where I was head of marketing was trying to, like, we had volume, right? So I'm like, well, if we can get a system in place where 50 something attorneys are doing a okay job of getting reviews, that's going to do better than anybody that, like, any one person can get on their own, right? And that's going to do better than doing these big review pushes. And
it's got to be
also
consistent.
they're also going to be real reviews, so I know they're going to be more likely to stick, right? And we had one location where one firm got ahead of us by like 400 or 500. It was really pissing me off. And then over time, they've lost like 300 to 400 reviews, and now they're kind of back even because they did more of the review push and the incentivizing of employees and things like that. And so it really becomes an infrastructure thing at your firm. How
Good
do you get the
business.
most reviews possible from the clients that are actually coming in the door? And guess what? If you got 300 cases a year coming in the door, there's systems you can put in place to get at least 50% of those clients to leave you a review, right? It's
good
business.
business.
You can get that.
You're just being a good bit. Again, we're talking about before. It's just, you're operating as a good business. Now, let me ask you this, Al. What do you think the value of a review is. If someone to leave that, a satisfied client and their checks
Mhm.
dispersed and they're in a good mood, like what does that net out to?
So it obviously depends on the practice area, right? But I like to put a $1,000 value on every 5-star review that you receive. And it was a complicated process to get there. And it was easier just to round it to about $1,000, but it was trying to factor in all of the inputs. And so it's still a little arbitrary, right? But it is, what is the value of it towards someone more likely to hire you because you're having more validation, right? So if it's 1,000 per 5-star reviews and you get 100 reviews, that's $100,000 in value. Well, some people are going to be more likely to hire you because you have more reviews. It's also the impact it has on your presence on Google and your local search that's actively bringing in more clients for you. It's the effect it has
LSAs
on
as
Google
well.
LSAs, and you're going to be
Yeah.
more likely to show on Google LSAs. Hey, it's now also pulling dynamically into, like, we put the right things in place where it's pulling dynamically into some of the organic search listings and into some of the Google ads. And so it's that effect of like 3, 4, 5 different things. 5-star review can be worth $1,000 for you if you're in the PI space. And if you look at it like that, right, you're now going like, I have this person that I'm dispersing a $50,000 check to. They're happy about my services. And if I let them walk out that door or get off of the phone and I don't actively try to get them to leave me a review, I'm going, I don't care about $1,000, right? And I don't know about you, but like, if I can get $1,000 by going to someone who's happy with me and going, hey, would you leave me a review? And they're like, yeah, sure. Right. And
Yeah.
that's what it
Yeah.
takes for me to get $1,000. I'm taking it every day.
And it reminds me again, just all that happens just for making a more informed decision to just not refer a case out that you thought, maybe there's not enough meat on the bone.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's just, and it just, for me, the review component of things, it's a very, very, very important part on just so many levels. And there's benefits to it in so many ways. And having a system in place is critical.
And the tough part that a lot of law firms run into is they just want to hire someone to, like, you're going to be the person that does my reviews, right? And it's like, we can do reputation management service for you, right? Especially if you have multi locations and you really need to track it and you need the responses, and you need some certain systems in place and you need some consultation. But ultimately, like, you have to get the people to want to leave a review for you. We can send out as many emails and text messages
Yeah.
to your client database, but it's coming kind of cold, right? It's not coming from the attorney I worked with. It's
Yeah,
not
that
coming
worked
from
for
the
12 months
paralegal
and was
that
on the
I know.
phone.
It's coming from a random text.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, it works and it has a high conversion rate. But what has a higher conversion rate is when I'm dispersing that check and I'm the attorney and I go, it was lovely working with you. I'm so glad we're able to really help you along in this journey and get you the compensation you deserve. But right now I need to put you in a position of power because I haven't asked for you. Right. I It's very important to the owner of the law firm that we treat our clients to the gold standard. And the way he monitors that, honestly, is by the reviews that the clients are leaving for us. And if you could just do me a favor, what I'm going to do is I'm going to input your name into a form real quick. You're going to get a text, and in that text will be a link that will bring you straight to a Google review. Say whatever you want, right? But would love for you to talk a little bit about your experience or whatever you're comfortable with saying, right? That client at the end of that quick engagement, number one, they're now in a position of power, right? The attorney needs something from me. That's a lot, right?
Yeah, it's tangible. It's meaning. It
And
is.
and and also it's a human experience. Like, I really hope I treated you well and you felt that. And I really hope that you'll treat me well for this 1 second. And when you do that, the conversion rate skyrockets because they're also receiving it there in that moment. Or maybe they leave and you'll get it in 5 minutes because you do want to be careful about the location base and all that. If they're coming to the office and too many people are doing that and they're on your
On the same
Wi-Fi or in the same
IPs.
location,
Yeah.
you're thinking about some of those things. I know a lot of people are going to ask you, but Alex, what about the recent news from Google where they're referring to an employee time after time, right? And they're taking those off. Well, we did encourage our attorneys to go have them mention you in there. But because of that, there were 50 attorneys being mentioned throughout the reviews. It wasn't one specific person mentioned
50 times.
50 times in a row, right? Which
Yeah.
shows like, oh, they probably got an incentive. Let me take that off.
Mm.
And I've been tracking it, and I've yet to see a negative. I've yet to see removals of those that were still just real honest and real reviews from that strategy.
Think about it from just over a period of time though as well. Like that's using Google as an example. They're seeing just a nice trajectory consistent of those reviews coming in.
Mhm.
So it's very easy to see when you've got a larger perspective. Oh, they added 150 in 3
Google's not
days.
going to
It looks
they're
abnormal.
much less likely to penalize you if you're getting 15 reviews a month
Yeah.
after month, than 45 reviews one month, and then 5 reviews the next month,
Yeah.
and then 45 reviews again, right? And ideally, the larger you're getting, the more reviews you get, and at the end of when I was in house, we were getting 150, 200 per month, right? That was fantastic
It's
to
a lot of
see.
reviews. Yeah.
But it's important no matter what size you are, right? Because you're in the customer service business. And one of the things that the attorneys hated hearing me say for a long time when I was building out the review process is, well, I want the reviews to be generated by the customer service representatives. Like, well, who are the customer service representatives? I was like, well, who takes care of the customer? Like the lawyers, right? Who does the customer ask for when they call in? The lawyers. It's like, whether the lawyers like it or not, they're the customer service representatives, right? They're the person that is being held responsible for everything. And time and time again, no matter how good the relationship was with the paralegal or the legal assistant, they still wanted to talk to their lawyer more often than not, right?
And it's a
And
period of
so,
time as well. The cases don't turn in a day, so it's becomes part of a longer process. So they're
mhm.
more comfortable in trusting that person. So yeah, and then we've talked before about incentivizing. There's different ways that you can affect
Yeah.
that into a business, but yeah,
But Google's, they're trying to police it now. They're more and more. They're getting more aggressive with it. And so now it's just having that, just like I was talking about earlier with SEO and brand building and good marketing, right? We were doing the things that made the firm better, and those things get rewarded over time. And same thing, you're doing good customer service, you're having great communication, you're doing the ask, right? You're going to win over the long time, especially as the platforms get more knowledgeable and are trying to tease out the bad stuff and provide a better experience for the users of that platform. I do want to loop back real quick to back to the search intelligence part, which obviously the reputation management and reviews are a part of that.
yeah.
And I think it's important that we have that conversations with our clients and with the people that want to work with us. You know, I want all of this as part of the services we're providing for you, because it doesn't live in a silo. I don't want to just build content for you. I don't want to just build links for you. I don't want to just do reputation management for you. It all works together and it can ebb and flow based off of the real results in the market. But kind of going back to, I call it like I do like a little infinity wheel where I do search intelligence, social intelligence, search intelligence, social intelligence, and how we have so many firms out there. That's how do I create content at scale? How do I do good on social media? And there's a million ways you can do it. I've done it a ton of different ways, but for most firms that don't want the heavy lift, that don't want to hire a social media person in house and don't want to try to figure out, should I do trends? Should I do this? Should I do that? Right. It's all about finding a system that works for you. And podcasts are that, right? A weekly, bi-weekly, monthly podcast is an easy way for you to create content at scale, talk about things that are relevant to the legal space you serve, relevant to the location you serve. And also it can be entertaining, right? Because in these conversations, the more you do with them, the more kind of off pattern you'll get sometimes, the more you'll randomly talk about that burger joint down the road when you ran into one of your clients. And then Now you're talking about that client story that was very interesting. And next thing you know, you have a podcast that's being informational, it's being entertaining, and you're distributing it at scale, because that 1 hour podcast can now turn it into 15, 30 or more pieces of content that can be scheduled out
Right. Hmm.
and can drive a lot of more content for your website, and just have so many law firms that kind of have the SEO part figured out, right? They're doing good, they're ranking good locally, um, but they don't have the content at scale figured out, and they feel like they should be doing it. And I do think they should be doing it, because that podcast, it's not just a podcast, right? It's a production day. It's a production day where we're getting a podcast, but we're also going to get you to create content that we think is going to be important to search, that we could then repurpose in different ways. We're also taking a bunch of swings and pushing out content. Some of it's going to do great, some of it's going to do okay, and some of it's, for whatever reason, is not going to get much viewership. But
Hmm.
if you're distributing it across five to seven platforms, each one of those is going to get probably at least 3,000 views, typically in your local area, if you're pulling the right strings. And then you're going to find the winners, the one that, hey, okay, we got 3,000 views collectively, but this last one got 10,000 views, right? Now let's take that, let's edit it up a little bit, make it a little bit more direct response focused, and run it as an ad layer on top. Now we got the infinity wheel, right? We got we
Right.
got social intelligence, we got search intelligence, social intelligence, search
Yeah, you're
intelligence.
using it to prove
Now,
out
now we
what's
have
working.
now we have the paid media, social media on top of it, where
Hmm.
we're pushing out content that is direct response, relevant. We're also supplementing that with some tried and true static ads that just work. I think people lose sight that when they think social media, like, sometimes some of the basics really do work very well. You layer in that on top, and then on the bottom side is my other layer of paid media with, Google, that we talked about earlier, Google ads and
Yep.
YouTube ads and things like that. And now you have this whole ecosystem. And for the firms out there that don't want to touch broadcast, that don't want to touch billboards, that circle with the infinity in it, like, that's going to work for you if you do it for a long enough time. You're going to build brand, you're going to generate leads. Ideally, over time, you're supplementing it. You're doing broadcast, you're doing billboards if you're a PI law firm.
But
And so
social
that's
is
just,
to me, social is such a no-brainer. Think of what most people do when they're just spending time.
mhm,
They're on their phones,
yeah.
and it's just be visible where people are, and they're on their phones a lot. So the concept, and it just, again, with the notion of search intelligence, it all matters to it. Think of, especially from the AI perspective, of just mentions, and it's listening to all of those different conversations that are going on. And yeah, I think it's the commingling of the social and search intelligence is definitely an important part of the equation for sure.
Yeah, and that's the long time brand scaling, right? And you're doing direct response, you're building brand, you're doing it, but also, there's the little mini campaigns. Like, we're running one right now on social media for one of our clients.
Mhm.
It has spent 200. I think this morning was like $221 total so far, and has 51 leads, because
It's amazing.
things pop up, right? Now, that's not MVA,
Sure.
to be
Yeah, yeah.
clear, right? But things pop up for these law firms that are relevant to them locally, whether it's a plant explosion, whether it's litigation or like some fraud or abuse that happened in a local area of a market. Those You put together a quick ad campaign with very direct response messaging about that. Typically, these are things that are in the news, people are aware of. It finds the audience based off of the creative. And next thing you know, what's happening right now. 50 leads, 215 or $221, whatever it was. And you now have these potential claimants for this larger litigation, that now they're your referral base, right? And you
Yeah.
and you got it really cheap. And now, when one of those 50 is in a car wreck and injured, guess who their lawyer is? They already have their lawyer. They're not searching anymore. They're already in the pipeline. So,
And ideally signing up and giving you a review that's going to help with your Google business and your LSAs.
if there's anything you want someone to know about kind of last thing, it's just like, Mark, tell me just the biggest thing I should know right now when it comes to SEO and I know we talked a lot about search intelligence, but figured you have like a concise little
Yeah.
nugget that would be.
Consistency is key, and just being detail oriented and doing the right things repeatedly. Pressure testing everything, monitoring what's going on. And sometimes you need to pivot just because platforms are changing. But for the most part, it's just, again, like we've been talking about, it's just doing the right things and a lot of them consistently. And that includes website content, generating the video content to support it, all those different pieces. And it's just a commitment of time, ultimately, is what it boils down to.
Yeah. Well, Mark, love it. Next time we get on, I'm probably gonna like pull up a case study and let's kind of dive deep into it because I like analyzing those, listening to those, and diving deep into them. I find people find them very helpful. So be thinking about some case studies you wanna jump into. But no, appreciate everything, Mark. It's been fun being at PMP and having someone who's just been in the trenches for so long that you talk about things that I haven't even thought about, right? And that says a lot because I like to think I'm good at what I do, but some people are more specialized in certain things, and so it's always fun to go down the rabbit holes with you.
Much obliged. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on. And yeah, just, hey, you've got my number. You know, I'll answer the call. So
All right. Well, thanks, Mark.